Good morning. Sorry for the delay. We'll get going here. I want to give just a few reminders before we get started. One, that this is a recorded video, so should you have any interruptions throughout the day, you can go back to the YouTube page and watch it from the beginning. If supervisors, if you have any staff that are not able to watch the live viewing, they can go back and watch it as well. So that is one of the benefits of the YouTube videos. Today we have a pretty short agenda. Hopefully we'll get you in, we'll get you out, and you can get back to going on with your day. So Kelly is going to be talking about some legislative updates. That was not on the agenda, but I think that everyone will find the information very interesting. And then we have Jenny Fowler will be talking about some new paths updates. And then we're going to go over ABOD policy and work registration. So we'll get going. Kelly?
Okay, so just to start out too, if there's any childcare staff that are on here, if you're interested in hearing the new paths information, I think that might be good information. But after that, the ABOD training and the work registration don't really apply to you, so feel free to log off. I think some of you probably already got that word. I'm not sure if I got it out to everybody this morning. So that's for childcare staff only. As far as legislative updates, Christy wanted to be here, and then she got called in for a legislative issue. So there's really only two bills that were introduced that pertain to us at DFS. One was a work requirements bill that you may have seen. That really doesn't have any bearing, even if it passes. I know they're looking at it on how we would do things. Really, the only thing it would make is that states could not ask for waivers to discontinue SNAP work requirements. It may affect Medicaid, however. So if that were the case, we may be looking at doing some type of data match with Wyoming Department of Health. So we'll see how that pans out. The other bill that you probably are more interested in has been the merger bill with the Department of Health, and that was not even introduced to the House, so we will not be merging with the Department of Health as far as for this legislative session. So that bill is essentially dead. And I think that's all of the updates we have from the legislative sessions.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. All right, so now we'll have Jenny talk about some of the new paths, updates, and the conferences.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the time to speak today, and I know we have many new workers that have joined us in the last year and maybe have not even heard of this association, but it's a professional association that I've been a member of for the last 3 years, and National Eligibility Workers Association is what the NEW stands for, and we're a chapter here in Wyoming of 22 members across the state. All types of eligibility workers can join, health department, workforce services. We're mostly made up of our department though. And I just wanted to let you know that we're looking for, new membership and engaging, ideas and creativity to bring to our own chapter. It's a $40 a year membership, which includes also a $1,000 life insurance policy. So you do get a little perk with that. And the big thing that caused many of us to join is just the friendships and the connections you make throughout the state, because we're all in different areas, and we're such a remote state that it's so nice to come together. We try to offer a couple trainings a year that are different and not as much policy-based, but more career-based or just life-based, life balance types of things. And once a year also, we have a national convention conference, and this year it will be in Orlando, Florida. So they always pick cool places. The first one I went to was in San Antonio, which, was a great experience because they go all out. You get a great hotel experience, you get activities at night, you meet people from all across the country, other eligibility workers. They keep it really fun. And And that's the biggest thing I would say you get out of it, is you just make great friendships, great connections, great networks. You learn about policies and outside of our own little world. And we actually do have a voice. There's been changes that have been implemented because of our organization on a national level. So I just wanted to encourage everybody, if you wanted to join, if you want to check more about it, there's the website. It's nationalnew.org, and there's a little slideshow that takes you through that. They've been around for 43 years, and you know, just what we're all about and what's been accomplished through it. But it's a professional organization that you can put on your resume at one point, showing that you're more engaged in your career than, you know, just an 8-to-5 job, and then all the networking that can come from it if you're ever looking, you know, towards furthering your career. So just contact me afterwards, Jenny Fowler, if you're interested and want to learn more or check out the website. The conference in Orlando would need a registration fee. You'd need to be a member to go, but we do sponsor scholarships, and we try to do as much as we can for those who really do want to make it. It's a $350 conference fee that has to be paid by March 31st. So we need you to join quickly to be eligible for that. And then we're trying to fundraise right now through the rest of the year to send as many people or pay as, you know, defer as much of the cost as we can. So just wanted to let you know, and then you might be seeing some of the members selling candy bars in the offices. That's going to be one of our fundraisers, and we're looking to get a workshop set up for April, either in Casper or Cheyenne. So look for that as well. So I think that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jenny. I think the New Path stuff is great, and I love some of the smaller workshops that they do too. It's just great topics, great time to get out and kind of get to know each other, like you said too. So I really appreciate all that you do. All right, so we're going to move into ABOD policy. And I just want to let you know as a reminder, if you do have questions while we're going through this, send them to me via instant message, and I will try to get those answered as we go along. If there's something that I can't answer right away, I will definitely get back to you after the conference is done, and then we can send that out to the entire field as well so that everyone has the answer. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and get this shared. So able-bodied adults without dependents is something that we deal with on a daily basis, and we just felt like it was a really great time of the year to give a reminder on this, to kind of go over some of the more in-depth details, and just kind of have a quick refresher for everyone. So who is an ABOD? An ABOD is a SNAP applicant or recipient who is able-bodied. It's an adult between the ages of 18 and 50, and lives in an assistance unit without dependent children. Do those dependent children have to be their dependent children? They don't. It just has to be everyone included in that SNAP assistance unit. If there's anyone under the age of 18, then they wouldn't be considered an ABOD. But if there is nobody under the age of 18, then we're going to look at that ABOD policy for the adults. Why do we have to identify ABODs? Well, federal regulations limit SNAP benefits received by ABODs to 3 months in a 36-month period if they're mandatory, meaning that they're not meeting an exemption of some kind, and they're also not meeting work requirements. They also may be eligible for 3 consecutive extended months if mandatory, and if they have met the work requirements, but they're no longer meeting the work requirements. Or they may be eligible for unlimited months as long as they are meeting all of the work requirements. And we're going to talk about the work requirements and the exemptions here in just a few minutes. Here in Wyoming, we do have a set 36-month calendar, which is fantastic. So we start on a specific date, and that 36 months goes to a specific date. That's for everybody across the board. The 3 months of ABOD benefits right now that a client can receive started as of October 1st, 2015. It will end September 30th, 2018, and then we'll start the next 36-month calendar again on October 1st. So beginning October 1st, 2018, the ABOD slate will be wiped clean for everybody, and the 36-month calendar will start over. The thing about that is, if someone were to receive 3 free ABOD months for the current 36-month calendar in September, August, and July, that slate will be wiped clean again. They could receive their first 3 ABOD months once again, October 1st, November, and December, which would give them 6 months in a row, but we're talking about 2 separate 36-month calendars. All right, so when we're counting free ABOD months, you always want to review the previous months within the current 36-month ABOD calendar to determine if the ABOD individual has received countable free months of benefits. Please don't ever just assume that they haven't. Always make sure that you're going back and you're really looking at those 36 months to see if they have received any, because they might have received one, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, and now they're back, which means they might only be eligible for 2 months at this point. So we do need to look at that history, even if we haven't seen that applicant for a long time. Count only full benefit months in which the ABOD received benefits. Those full benefit months would be paid on or after October 1st, 2015. That's the very beginning of our current 36-month calendar. They also have to be months that they were a mandatory individual, so they were not meeting any exceptions, and they were also not meeting the ABOD work requirements. We're only counting full benefit months. So if someone were to come in and apply in the middle of the month, say they apply in the middle of February, they've never received a free ABOD month at all in the last 36-month period. February is not going to count as one of their free ABOD months because it is not a full month. So that count would start March, April, and then May. So we're not going to count that prorated month. We're also not going to count a month when benefits were issued, but a dollar amount was not received. So if they apply at the very end of February, like the 28th or the 27th, and Epix does its proration for the month, the benefit's less than the minimum benefit amount, it'll be a $0 amount for February. We're not going to count February. All right. Do not apply the ABOD limit to any person who is exempt from work registration for any reason. Those exemptions are all in Combined Manual Section 702. We're also going to be talking about them in the very next training that we do during this conference. So we'll go through all of that here in pretty good detail. We also do not apply the ABOD limit to a pregnant woman. We do not need to have verification from a physician stating that she is pregnant. We just need her statement that she is pregnant. Make sure we're narrating that. Narrate the due date so that we kind of know when to expect in addition to the household, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to go ahead and exempt her from ABOD policy. All right, so ABOD work requirements. In order to receive unlimited months of SNAP benefits, the ABOD must be working at least 20 hours per week or an average of 80 hours per month. They can be participating in and complying with the requirements of the Workforce Investment Act, or WIA, or the Trade Adjustment Assistance, TAA, for at least 20 hours per week. That's the 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month. They can also be doing a combination of those two. So if they're participating in WIA 10 hours a week and they're working part-time 10 hours a week, they're meeting that 20-hour-a-week requirement. So keep that in mind that we do have some options there when we're looking at meeting that work requirement. Requirements to receive 3 consecutive extended ABOD months. And I think that this is something that we do receive quite a few questions on, is how do we work on the extended ABOD months? So the ABOD individual must have used his or her 3 free ABOD months already. So those have already been used. They must still be a mandatory ABOD. And they have also met the work requirements by working at least 80 hours in a 30-day period, or participated and cooperated with the requirements of the WIA or TAA training for at least 80 hours. So if they've used their 3 free ABOD months, then they have the 80 hours of work or 80 hours combination of WIA, TAA, and work in a 30-day period. That's a 30-day period. It's not a calendar month. It can start the 15th of one month and go to the 15th of the next month. Then they would be eligible for the extended ABOD months. All right, things to keep in mind with that. An ABOD is only eligible for one additional 3-month period in any 36-month ABOD calendar. So 3 months of extended benefits can only happen once for them. Those 3 months also must run consecutively whether or not the benefits are received. So if you authorize 3 extended ABOD months for March, April, and May, let's say at the end of March, they start working, they're meeting the work requirements, we go in and change the coding. So they've only used one of those 3 extended ABOD months. The other 2 are forfeited so that they're not going to be eligible for extended months again later in the 36-month calendar, even though they only actually used the one. So do keep that in mind. And if you have any questions about that, let me know. All right, the other thing that we do see is self-employment. Not everybody works for an employer. So for self-employed applicants, a client statement can be used for their hours worked. We just need to make sure that we're narrating that very well. We want to have a good conversation with them about their hours, their schedule, what's really going on with their situation, and then document that in the narrative. Self-employed individuals need to be asked how many hours they're working per week. And there you have it. Narrate, narrate, narrate. Can't stress that one enough. All right, so that's kind of the basics of who's an ABOD, how do they meet work requirements, how many months are they eligible for, and how we go through that. The next thing that we want to talk about with ABODs is identifying and tracking them, because that's really important that we are identifying them, that we're putting it into our systems correctly, and that we're also using the information that's at our fingertips, such as rave reports and things, to make sure we have all the information we need on if they've received benefits, how many they've received, and make sure that we're not giving them too many. So all of that is done in, get my pointer, WARWA, the ABOD tracking screen, and then also our rave reports. So we're going to talk about those. The WARWA screen in EPICS is what records the work registration and ABOD status for each individual in a SNAP assistance unit. So this is an example of the WARWA screen. And I love this example. I use it in several different trainings because I think the WARWA screen is one that I know a lot of new workers really have difficulty with. And I think even a lot of us that have been here for a while get a little confused on the codes that we're putting in. So this is a very handy tool to have. I recommend people print it out or at least have it in a place where you can kind of grab it really quick if you're having to input that information and you have any questions. It's a great tool to have at your disposal. So starting with the work registration, all of this under the exempt column, and there's 4 different columns that you see there under that. So the first question you're asking is this person exempt from work registration? And that's going to be a yes or a no. And it just has those right there. So it's all about how you're questioning that to yourself. Is this person exempt? Yes or no? What's the code? What's the verification we have? And then, of course, our food stamp work registration date. We'll talk about those again in the next training as well. So the ABOD stuff, that's what we're looking at right now with able-bodied adults without dependents. Again, it's really about how you pose the question to yourself as you're putting everything in. So is this person an ABOD? That's what you're asking under this column. Are they an ABOD? Yes or no? Do they meet an exemption? Yes or no? And then are we counting it? So with the count codes, we have F for accountable free month. It took me forever to figure out why it was F and that meant free. So for the longest time, I was like, oh, it's just one of those weird EPICS things. So F is for free. Is it accountable free month? One of the 3 free months that they're eligible for. And is a no, it's not countable. X is its accountable extended ABOD month. So that's what you're going to put under this count column here. F for we're counting that as a free ABOD month, and for we're not, or X that it's extended. And I heard a question recently about, if they're ABOD, yes. If they're not meeting an exemption, shouldn't it always be a countable month? It was a question that came up recently. And it might not be. The reason that it might not be is because of that prorated month. What if it's that prorated first month of the certification period that we're not counting as an ABOD month? That's the reason that you might have, yes, they're ABOD, no, they're not exempt, and no, we're not counting it. So that's the reasoning behind that. All right. So we have some coding examples. Our first one, John is an ABOD who is applying for SNAP benefits on February 9th. He does not currently meet an exemption and is not meeting work requirements. So our ABOD coding on WARWA, that we're talking about just that last ABOD section on the WARWA screen, is going to be, is John ABOD? Yes, he is. Does he meet an exemption? No, he does not. And in the month of February, which is a partial month, are we counting that as a free ABOD month? No, we're not, because it's a partial month. We can't count that against him. And then as we move on and roll that case forward to the next month, coding for March, April, and May, is John an ABOD? Yes, he is. Is he meeting an exemption? No, he isn't. And are we counting it? Yes, those are countable free ABOD months. Our next example for coding, Mary is an ABOD who is applying for SNAP benefits on February 12th. She is currently meeting work requirements by working at least 20 hours per week or an average of 80 hours per month. Keep in mind, we can't average it. It doesn't have to be 20 every single week. It can be 10 one week, 30 the next. So for Mary, we're looking at her coding. Is Mary an ABOD? She is. Is she exempt? Yes, she is, because she's meeting those work requirements. Are we counting those months for her? No, we're not. So we want to make sure that the ABOD coding on WARWA is correct, even for somebody who's currently eligible for unlimited benefits, unlimited months of benefits, because they are meeting the work requirements. We still want to make sure that this coding on WARWA is correct for that person. Example 3. Spencer is an ABOD who is applying for SNAP benefits on February 7th. He has already used his 3 free ABOD months and has since worked at least 80 hours in a 30-day period. He's currently no longer meeting an exemption or the work requirements. Spencer is eligible for the 3 extended ABOD months. So how are we going to code it for someone for the extended ABOD months? Starting in February, Spencer's applying February 7th. Yes, he's ABOD. No, he's not meeting an exemption. And no, we're not counting it. Why? Because of that partial benefit month. Coding for March, April, and May. Those are the 3 extended months that he will be receiving. ABOD. Is he ABOD? Yes, he is. Does he meet an exemption? No, he does not. Are we counting it? We are counting it. We're counting them as extended months because he's already received his 3 free months. So that's the coding for extended months. All right. The next screen that we use for ABOD tracking is the ABTR, or ABOD tracking screen. The ABOD tracking screen on Epix will display the ABOD information for every month a client was an ABOD, coded as in the participation field on SEPA, and the client's case was paid a SNAP benefit. The screen can be viewed by entering a non-blank character in the unlabeled column immediately after the ABOD fields on the WARWA screen. So I'm going to go back just a second and show you where that is. All right. So if we're tabbing along for Tom S., we're tabbing along, we're putting all this coding in, we put his ABOD codes in, we're going to tab over to this blank section right here. You just tab it, it's going to take you there. That's where you will put the X in, hit enter, and that will take you to the ABOD tracking screen. All right, go back to where we're at. All right, the client's name and case number are displayed at the top of the screen. In the second row of the ABTR screen, that indicates the count of free and extended months the client has received in the 3-year period, beginning with the benefit month. This month initially defaults to the beginning, or to the benefit month WARWA was displayed for. I lost my place there, sorry. But the user may change it to see the 3-year count as any benefit month. The ABTR screen always displays all paid benefit months, which exist in the history file for the client. Those benefit months within our current 36-month calendar are denoted with a white plus sign next to it. I'll show you that in just a sec, in front of the benefit month. The asterisk is the sign for an out-of-state payment. So we do also keep track of out-of-state payments here because ABOD months transfer from state to state. All right, so this is an example of the ABTR screen. So we went to the WARWA screen, we tabbed all the way over to that blank field, entered through, and that's going to take us to the ABTR screen. So this is for Clyde Batboy. So we see these are the plus signs that are to the left of the month. So that lets us know that all of these months that have the plus sign next to it are within our current 36-month calendar. And it's kind of the same thing that you see on WARWA as well. Was Clyde Batboy an ABOD in October of 1999? Yes, he was. Did he meet an exemption for that month? Yes, he did. Was it a countable month? No, it wasn't. So you're just asking that question in the right way again in order to read that correctly. So this tells us that he has had 3 months and then 3 extended months already of paid benefits. Now, we do have to put in the out-of-state months. So if you have someone that moves here from another state that counts ABOD months, you call that state to make sure that their benefits have ended. You ask how many ABOD months they've received. You know, you're asking about the TANF months they've received and all that good stuff. We're going to go in to the ABTR screen and we have to input those out-of-state months. So if Clyde Batboy had received 3 free ABOD months in, let's see, January 2018, December 2017, November 2017, we're going to go in here and we're just going to tab over to this and put all of this information in. So we'll put the month and the year. We'll put, was he an ABOD? Yes. Did he meet an exemption? No. Was it a countable free ABOD month? We'll put that F if it was and hit enter. When we do that, Epix is going to put that asterisk next to it because it was manually entered. Epix knows that it was an out-of-state month, and then that will be on this. It'll be reflected on this so that we know exactly where Clyde Batboy is with his 3 free months and 3 extended months. It seems like every time I go to this screen and I need to put something in, it seems like there should be a trick to it, like I'm missing some big step on how to do it, but it really is that simple. All right, the other tool at our disposal to keep track of ABOD months, and it's absolutely wonderful, is our ABOD report in Rave. We're checking Rave before every morning. We're checking all of our interfaces for all of our clients. What I would really, okay, question. I'm going to read that in just a second, Carla. Hang on. So the other thing that we need to be doing is setting an alert once a month, twice a month, once a week, to check periodic Rave reports as well. Just put it on your calendar, schedule that for yourself. That's your time to go in and keep track of things. And the ABOD report is one of those that you need to be keeping track of and making sure we're checking on a regular basis. It will list all of the ABODs within our caseload and tell us how many free months they've had and how many extended months they've had. So we need to keep track of that. That way we know we're sending the right notices when it's due. We're also making sure that that individual isn't receiving 4 free ABOD months, because then they have an overpayment. We have to, deal with all of that. They have to deal with maybe receiving reduced benefits or having to pay those benefits back in cash. So we need to be using this to prevent all of that kind of stuff from happening. So when you go into Rave and you go into your quick report and you do the drop-down menu, you'll see the ABOD report there. That's going to pull up this for your caseload. And it's the ABOD detail report. It tells you the case number for all of the cases that have an ABOD in it. It'll tell you the client name, which I have blacked out here, of the client that is the ABOD. And then again, what is the free month count and what is the extended month count? So if I'm pulling this at the beginning of the month and I see these individuals with 2, they've received 2, I know that I'm going to have to act on them. We've got to make sure we're sending those notices and all those things, and make sure that we don't have someone who, if it's their 3rd free ABOD month, maybe we had to certify them for the 4-month certification period. So now we have to go in and manually close the case down and send them the notices for that so that they don't end up receiving a 4th free ABOD month. So please be sure to monitor this report on a regular basis. Like I said, put it in your calendar, schedule time for yourself. That's your time to go in and check some of these reports and make sure that you're doing that caseload management stuff that really helps us to make sure that our actions on cases are accurate and good. All right, so we've talked about who's an ABOD, how they meet the work requirements, how they meet exemptions, and also how we track them within EPICS, within Rave, and on that ABTR page as well. So let's go over just the step-by-step ABOD process. We'll just kind of walk through it from beginning to end. So the 3 free ABOD month process. First, the ABOD client must be sent an F-109, notifying the client of his or her ABOD status. In that 109, we want to make sure that we're listing what their 3 free months will be. The WARWA and ABTR screens, which we just went over, must be updated to correctly track the client's ABOD status. It is important that the coding we put into WARWA is accurate because that is how it's tracked. That is how it is transferred over to the ABTR screen as well. That is how it is transferred into our Rave report as well. So like I said, that page, that example of the WARWA page is, it's a great tool to have. Print it out, have it somewhere close by if you have questions on how to make sure that that coding is all correct. An alert must also be set on the PAL screen to identify that a client must be sent an F313 and F314 notice at the start of the 2nd ABOD month. Set an alert on your PAL screen. I know a lot of workers also put it in their calendar. They just put it on the Google Calendar, send F313 and 314 case numbers, and they'll put the case numbers there so that they have a reminder when they come into work on the 1st working day of the 2nd month, they're going to send those in. And again, if you're putting it in your calendar, you're setting that time aside for yourself to make sure that you can get that done. At the beginning of the 2nd ABOD month, send those notices. If a client does not respond or return the F314 form by the 15th of the 3rd month, the case is to be closed or benefits reduced. The reason it says benefits reduced is because it could be more than a 1-person household. So there might be another adult who is exempted from ABOD, in which case we're just going to reduce those benefits and not close the whole case. If the client does return the 314 form, it needs to be reviewed to see if the client is eligible. Morgan is asking when their 3rd ABOD month is their 4th month of their certification period, and they line up. We don't have to send the 313 and 314, correct? We should still be sending the 313 and 314 in the 2nd month because that individual might have started working. They might have started receiving something else that exempts them from ABOD. So we want to make sure that our count in the 3rd month is still correct, that we still have the right coding. Because if they're now exempt for one reason or another, we need to change it so that we're not counting that as a free ABOD month. What you don't need to do if it lines up perfectly to where the 4th month of the certification period, and that's the final month of the certification period, lines up with their 3rd free ABOD month, and for benefits any longer, is we don't put down for ABOD. We can let it auto close at that point. But you do still want to send the 313 and 314 notices. All right. If a client is not entitled to benefits after the third ABOD month, the appropriate notice needs to be sent. That's the closure or reduction notice. We need to make sure we are sending notices to our clients. We're informing them of all actions that are being taken on their case. ABOD month process. If the client is eligible for F-102 should be sent. Be sure to include a statement in the free form area that the approval is for the 3 extended months and specify which months those include. So I think that's where we have some confusion on the extended months. What do we put in that notice? So we're sending the F-102 that we normally send. We're sending, your certification period has been approved from this month to that month. What's different is we need to tab down to that free form area in the notice, and we need to actually say, this approval is for your 3 extended ABOD months, which will be March 2018, April 2018, May 2018. So make sure we're putting that in the free form. To close an extended case, the F-413 should be sent indicating that the 3 free months have been used and which months were included in that. The F-413 should also cite federal policy. Or 04, so those CFRs. Things to keep in mind with ABODs. An ABOD must be given a minimum of a 4-month certification period. So if they apply on the very first day of a month, and so their first 3 out of those 4 months are going to be countable ABOD months because they're not prorated or anything, we need to be very, very careful, make sure we're watching that rave report, we're setting ourselves alerts, we're using our calendar so that we go in and they don't receive that 4th month of their certification period, which would be an overpayment because they're not eligible for 4 free ABOD months. An ABOD must be sent an F-313 and 314 notice at the beginning of their 2nd ABOD month. Set those alerts, use that calendar, watch the rave report for that as well. And depending on if and how a client responds to the F-313 and F-314, benefits will either end at the end of the 3rd ABOD month, be reduced if it's a household of more than 1, or they may be extended. They might now be eligible for the 3 extended months, and then we need to do all of the work that goes on with that. Okay, Moana, I will get back to you on that when we're all done here. All right, some other ABOD reminders. The case narrative is essential on ABOD cases so that it can be determined who is an ABOD and what actions have been taken. That case narrative is it's the safety net of everything we do in the cases. But when we're talking about ABODs, just like self-employment and all kinds of other things, we need to make sure that we are documenting within that narrative. Make sure you're listing all assistance unit members who are an ABOD. Document if they meet an exemption and include why or why they do not. List all previously used free ABOD months in the current 36-month period, and then state the projected free ABOD months that will be used. And reporting responsibilities. This is huge. We talked about reporting responsibilities a few conferences ago and how we really need to make sure we're going over the rights and responsibilities with the clients. We're also going over what their reporting responsibilities are and all of that stuff in detail at every application, every single time with every applicant. Under simplified reporting, the reporting requirements specific to an ABOD are if an assistance unit contains an ABOD who is working and his or her hours decrease to less than 20 hours per week on average, this must be reported by the 10th day of the following month. Clients are not required to report other changes in ABOD status. So if you have someone who's meeting that exemption by meeting the work requirements, we still need to make sure that we are not missing explaining their reporting responsibilities to them and going over the fact that you are an able-bodied adult without dependents. Because you are working that 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month, you're currently eligible for unlimited SNAP benefits. But if that changes, if your work hours decrease and you're no longer meeting that, You need to let me know by the 10th day following the month that it happens. Really stress that, go over that in detail. All right, so reporting responsibilities examples. Client applied for benefits on April 3rd and is not subject to the age of 18 residing in the home. On May 17th, the child leaves the home, reported to us. In September, the client submits an application. In September, the client submits an application for recertification and this information becomes known. Client's free ABOD months are June, July, and August. Client was not required to report the change. Therefore, an overpayment does not exist for September. All right. Example number 2, client applied for benefits on April 3rd and is not subject to ABOD time limits due to working at least 20 hours per week or 80 hours per month. On May 17th, the ABOD loses his or her employment, but this is not reported. In September, the client submits an application for recertification and this information becomes known. Client's free ABOD months are June, July, and August. Client was required to report the change, therefore an overpayment does or may exist for September. All right. We have frequently asked questions. Some of these can be found in the manual as well at the bottom of each section in the manual. If there are frequently asked questions pertaining to that topic, you just have to scroll down to the bottom of that page and you can find some pretty good answers to questions that you might have. First question, if we have a client who comes to Wyoming, we do not need to just ABOD months, or do we need to check to see if they used ABOD months in another state? We talked about that. The answer is yes, we do. We need to contact the state the client came from to verify if they used ABOD months there or not. If they did, we need to make sure we're inputting that information onto the ABTR ABOD tracking screen. Next question, if you have 2 separate assistance units that live in the same house, they purchase and prepare separately, and one assistance unit contains only ABODs, the other has children in it, and are both assistance units exempt ABOD criteria. So an assistance unit and house assistance units living under the same roof. Only one of them has no. Only the assistance unit that actually has that minor child in it is eligible. The other would be an ABOD household. If a client reapplies after receiving their 3 free ABOD months, do they need to be given an interview or can they just be denied? Yes, we absolutely need to give them an interview. Next question, if they're a child in the assistance unit, are all adults exempt from the ABOD even if they aren't related? We mentioned this at the beginning. Yes, all adults in that assistance unit with the child are exempt from ABOD provisions. It doesn't have to be a dependent of each individual. It just has to be a minor child in that household, in that assistance unit. Next question. If an ABOD comes in after they receive their 3 free months and claims they are unable to work, can we expedite them? No, the client would need to verify that he or she is exempt. Next question. An ABOD is exempt if they work 80 hours or more per month. What do we define as working? That's a great question. Answer to that is working for an ABOD includes work in exchange for money, work in exchange for goods or services, so in kind, or unpaid volunteer work with an agency or organization, which is scheduled and structured. So if they're a volunteer at the local food bank, they have a schedule, they can bring their schedule, like you see how often they're working and they meet that 20 hours a week or 80 hours a month, we could use that as meeting the work requirements. Next one, if an ABOD becomes exempt in the middle of a month, can we change their ABOD status as of the beginning of that month? So they became exempt on February 13th. Do we go back to February 1st and change their coding? No, we don't. The ABOD status is as of the first day of the month, and that's what stands for the whole month. So we would change their coding for March 1st. Next question, what do you do if a client turns in the F314 after his or her case has closed and it indicates that the client is now meeting one of the ABOD exemptions? If a client turns this form in after benefits have ended, then the client will need to reapply. If a client turns the form in before the benefits have ended, then the worker will need to act on that form, or we could potentially extend their benefits at that point. All right. Does a client still get to receive all 3 of their extended months of benefits if they go over income during the first month? We talked about this as well. If a client reports that his or her income has increased, you need to act on this. And if the household is no longer eligible, then the case is to be closed and the client will not get all 3 of those extended months. Please note that 10 days must be given for adverse action and that extended months must all run consecutively. Next question, if you have a case where you can either close the case for using all 3 ABOD months, or it can auto close for end of a certification period, what do? Let it auto close. If you're letting it auto close, it won't be put into the QC pool for negative cases. If you go in and close it for having used all 3 of their ABOD months, that will trigger it to be put into that QC pool. So just a little trick. Next question, if a client has a dependent child that lives with them part of the time but is included in another SNAP case, are they exempt from the ABOD provision? They are. What's important in that situation? Document, document, document the situation with the kiddo. Next question, if you have a 19-year-old in high school, is he or she an ABOD? Nope, they would be exempt from the ABOD provisions, and that can be found in Manual Section 707 and 706, and then 702. We're going to talk about those sections in the next training with work registration as well. All right, if a client has applied for SSI, is he or she an ABOD? No, a client who provides proof that he or she has applied for SSI, that's Supplemental Security Income, is not an ABOD. If the client is denied SSI and then it's in the appeal stage, that no longer meets that exemption. And keep in mind, it only applies to SSI. It does not apply to any Social Security disability, SSDI, SSDS, that type of stuff. Does it need to be narrated that you have asked a client who has exhausted his or her 3 ABOD months if they have worked 80 hours in a 30-day period to see if he or she may qualify for extended benefits? You betcha. Yes, we need to be asking that. A narrative needs to indicate that that was asked. QC will ask this question if it is not in the narrative. ESY-4 should always be checked as well at new application and recertification. That should be being checked before the interview every single time as part of our pre-interview interfaces and preparation. All right. I'm going to exit this. And we will move on. So that's able-bodied adults without dependents. It coincides very well with work registration requirements because if an ABOD is exempt from work registration requirements, then they're exempt from the ABOD provision. So we're going to talk about the work registration requirements now. This can all be found in Combined Manual 701 and 702. So the DFS 301 work registration form okay. Jeannie, I will get back to you on that. So I do have a few questions regarding ABODs and the F313 and 314 notices, and then also on the if a child's in another assistance unit, does that exempt that person from ABOD? So I do have a few questions on that. Hang tight, because those are things that I want to look at so that I can make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're on the right page with that. So when I have that all figured out after the video conference, I will send that out, send those answers and that clarification out to you. So just bear with me and we'll get through the work requirements and then we'll get that all squared away for you. All right, the DFS 301 work registration form must be completed at the time of application and every 12 months after initial registration by all work registration mandatory individuals. That excludes mandatory persons who are excused while meeting work requirements by participating in unemployment benefits, power, or tribal TANF. So really the best way to look at work registration and who needs to work register and who does not really is to go through the list of exemptions from work registration and see if that individual meets those exemptions. And then if they don't, we know we need to have them work register. So that's where we're going to start with this. Who is exempted from work registration? A child under the age of 16, including a child who turned 16 during the certification period. Also a child age 16 or 17 who is not the head of an assistance unit, they are attending school, or they're enrolled in an employment training program at least half-time. So they're 16 or 17, they're either in high school, they're not the head of the assistance unit, or they're participating in an employment training program. Also anyone over the age of 60. So we're looking at that. We're looking at 16 to 60. But if there's, someone who's 16, they're exempt. If they're 16 or 17, we're going to look at those other ways. All right. Also, if they are physically or mentally unfit for employment, and we verify that by looking at a few different things, receiving either temporary or permanent disability benefits issued by a governmental or private source. So if they're receiving temporary or permanent disability, they would be exempted from work registration. If there is a determination of incapacity by a completed DFS 110 statement of incapacity form, which has been completed by the individual's licensed physician, psychologist, or master level mental health worker. So it has to be completed by one of those, not the nurse at the doctor's office or the front desk person or something like that. It does have to be a licensed physician, psychologist, or master level mental health worker. Also, a visual determination of a physical disability by the benefit specialist. If we are using that to exempt them from work registration, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you are narrating that very, very well. Make sure you have that all documented. A few more physically or mentally unfit for employment situations would be if they're cooperating with the Department of Employment or DVR, so Department of Vocational Rehab, in the application process for services, or if they're cooperating with the Social Security Administration in the Supplemental Security Income or SSI application process. Same as with ABOD, it has to be, they've applied for SSI, they're waiting for an initial decision. If it's denied and in the appeals process, it no longer exempts that person from work registration. And again, it also has to be Supplemental Security Income, not any other type of Social Security. There's a lot of different types of Social Security that individuals might be receiving or applying for: disability, survivor's benefits, widow's benefits, all kinds of stuff. So we're looking only at the Supplemental Security Income. That's going to require you to do a little bit of collateral contact with Social Security. Pick up the phone, give them a call, ask about the application. What's the initial application date? Is it in the initial application process or is it in the appeals? What program are they applying for? All of that stuff, and then narrate all of that stuff as well in your narrative. They can also be receiving VA disability compensation, regardless of just the disability rating. So even if they're 10% disabled according to the VA, if they're receiving that disability compensation for that 10% disability, we're going to exempt them from work registration. Also from able-bodied adults without dependents. All right, who else is exempted from work registration? A parent or other individual who's responsible for the care of a dependent child under the age of 6. A parent or other individual who is responsible for the care of an incapacitated person, and a person who is receiving unemployment compensation, unemployment benefits. That also applies to an individual who has applied for unemployment benefits and is not yet receiving payments, but is currently complying with the work requirements that are part of the federal state unemployment compensation application process. So just looking at our unemployment interface to see if a payment has been made on that is not enough. We need to maybe contact the unemployment benefits caseworker and find out if this person is complying with their work requirements. Also, a regular participant in a drug addiction or alcohol treatment and rehabilitation program. Keep in mind that alcohol treatment does not include Alcoholics Anonymous. What we're talking about with this is regular participation consisting of required recurring counseling that occurs during work hours, that's 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., and or therapy that has been court ordered and is part of a probation agreement and cannot be accomplished outside of work hours. This one also sometimes takes a little background work, contacting Andy, Jackie, Kelly, myself. We can kind of help figure out if a certain program that an individual is participating in meets the requirements to exempt them from work registration and thereby also exempt them from able-bodied adults without dependents. It really depends on that program, how things are ran, and what the person is signed up for and what their participation requirements are. So it's something that really needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Another exemption from work registration would be a bona fide student enrolled at least half-time in any of the following during normal periods of class attendance, vacation, and recess. That's going to be a recognized school, high school. Anyone who's in high school, we're going to exempt them from work registration. A training program such as Wyoming Technical Institute, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and certain employment and training programs, which include education. Some of those employment and training programs that we have are Climb Wyoming, Dad's Making a Difference, those programs. Also an institution of higher education, such as Laramie County Community College or LCCC and University of Wyoming. A few more exemptions. Individuals subject to the requirements of the Power or Tribal TANF program. That does not include those that are participating in relative caretaker power or tribal TANF. It's the work referred power and tribal TANF. Also, individuals who are employed or self-employed and working a minimum of 30 hours a week are receiving weekly earnings equal to at least the federal minimum wage multiplied by 30 hours. So in our example, we have someone who is earning $10 an hour and working 25 hours a week. So they're not working 30 hours a week, but we are going to look at their income, which is $250 per week, divide that by the federal minimum wage, and that comes out to 34.48 hours, because that is the equivalent of more than 30 hours a week. We can exempt that individual from work registration. So that's another option that we do need to look at as we're processing their case. Also, individuals who are employed or self-employed and working a minimum of 30 hours weekly or receiving weekly earnings equal to at least the federal minimum wage multiplied by 30 hours and is a migrant seasonal farm worker who is under contract or similar agreement with an employer or crew chief to begin employment within 30 days. All right, a reminder on this. Work registration compliance requirements on the DFS 301 shall be reviewed with anyone who is temporarily excused from signing the form so that he or she is aware of the requirements and penalties of non-compliance. So if they are meeting one of those, if say they're working, we still need to let them know that if their hours drop, these are our requirements for work registration. All right, so how do we handle the mandatory work registrants, people who are not meeting those exemptions that we just talked about? Mandatory work registrants must register either online or at DWS, complete an online resume in wyomingatwork.com, respond to a request for supplemental information regarding their employment status or availability for work, respond to a request for supplemental information regarding their employment. I've got that twice. Report to an employer to whom referred if the potential employment meets the definition of suitable employment. They're not voluntarily or without good cause quit a job of 30 hours or more per week or reduce work effort to less than 30 hours per week. Combined Manual Section 706 does talk about that good cause. We'll look at that in just a second. Also, accept a bona fide offer of suitable employment if the wage is at least federal minimum wage. So when we're talking about suitable employment, if you're wanting to know what exactly does suitable employment consist of, we can go to Combined Manual 704. And then retain and maintain suitable employment. So I do want to go to the manual here because I really, really want to stress how important the manual is, using the manual, looking up some of those terms. You know, it's not enough just to look at one section. Sometimes we look at that section and then we do need to know, okay, so what exactly does suitable employment mean? Or what exactly does quit without good cause mean? So I'm going to pull that up here. So we're going to go right to that section. If you're wondering what suitable employment entails, it's going to line it all right out here for you within the manual. Employment shall be considered suitable unless one or more of the following has occurred. If the wage offered is less than the federal minimum wage, that wouldn't be considered suitable employment. If the employment offered is on a piece rate basis and the average hourly rate the employee can reasonably be expected to earn is less than that federal minimum wage, again, not suitable employment. You know, if the distance from home to work exceeds 2 hours per day, not including the transportation of a child to and from daycare, or the distance prohibits walking and neither public nor private transportation are available. So these are things that we need to look at if we're trying to figure out if someone has voluntarily quit suitable employment. So make sure you're using the manual and that you're using it to its full effect, because there are so many things in here that we can really look at on each topic of policy that is more than just the one section. So, you know, if we're looking at exemptions from work registration 702, you're not going to stop with just 702. You might have to move on to 704 for suitable employment, or 706, you know, good cause for failing to comply with work requirements. Also, if you need to look things like what does suitable employment mean, you could go to the glossary as well. So let's just, you know, I really can't stress how important it is to have the manual up on your desktop all day, every day, and to really be referencing it all the time. All right. Back to the PowerPoint. All right, so non-compliance with work registration. Deny any mandatory individual who refuses to sign the DFS 301 and or sanction anyone who fails to comply with the work requirements for unemployment benefits, power, or tribal TANF. Notified for failure to comply with the work registration requirements without good cause. An individual is assumed to have complied unless information is received from DWS that he or she has not complied. So we're going to have them do that DFS 301 form, take it there, bring it back, and then we'll just assume that they're still in compliance unless we hear from the DWS case manager saying, hey, you know, they're not meeting this, they've been offered suitable employment, they keep turning it down or not showing up or whatever the case may be. Unless we're having that communication from them, we'll assume that they are remaining in compliance. Also important is to remember that if one person in an assistance unit of 2 or more individuals does not comply with the work registration requirements, that individual should be sanctioned, and the remainder of the assistance unit is potentially still eligible for SNAP benefits based on all those other eligibility factors. So if we have a household of more than one person and one person doesn't bring that work registration form back, that's the only thing that doesn't come back. We have everything else we need to process that case. We're going to sanction that person. We're not going to just deny the whole case for the work registration form not coming back. All right, so some examples. Example 1, household of 1 applies for SNAP benefits and is required to complete work registration requirements. The individual refuses to provide verification of compliance. That's a household of 1. So at that point, the application should be denied because the only person in that assistance unit is not complying with the work requirements. Example 2, we have a household of 3 applying for SNAP benefits. The household consists of 1 adult, 2 children over the age of 12. The adult in the household is not employed. Any other exemption and the work apply verification of compliance. We have more than a household of 1. So we're not going to just deny that application because the 2 children over the age of 12 are potentially still eligible for SNAP benefits. So what do? The adult, the PI, should be sanctioned and coded DF on SEPA, and a sanction date of SA should be added to WARWA and EPICS. benefits will be issued for the remaining 2 members of that household. All right, WARWA and EPICS. And this will look familiar. Same thing. We talked about all the ABOD stuff. We briefly went over this. Just remember, it's all about asking that question in the right way to know how you're answering this. So is Tom S. exempt from work registration? Does he meet one of those exemptions that we just talked about? No, he doesn't. What's the verification codes? Me hard copy, client statement, however we verified that. And then when he brings his DFS 301 work registration form back to us, we're going to put the date that that client registered for work by completing the DFS 301 here. So it's, are they exempt? Indicator is yes or no. And then what date did they register? All right. Okay, I didn't see any work registration questions coming up. Like I said, with the ones that you sent me regarding ABOD stuff, I will get that out to you here shortly. That's what we have on the agenda for you today. So we're going to get you out a little early so you can move on with the rest of your day. If any questions come up afterwards, please send them to me so that we can get those answered for you as well. Otherwise, thanks for joining us and have a great day.